I was still holding the tray when they said it. Not a joke, not a mistake. The maid will handle it. My hands froze, my chest felt hollow. These were the same people who watched me lose everything. My home, my place, my worth. I stood there while strangers looked at me like I belonged behind them, not with them. Like I had always been this. No one corrected it, no one even looked at me. That silence cut deeper than the words. Something inside me snapped, quiet, final. I put the tray down slowly, my hands stopped shaking, because they thought I would stay small, stay quiet. They had no idea what I was about to say. My name is Emily Carter, I'm 26 years old. I used to believe staying quiet kept things stable. If I helped enough, gave enough, stayed patient enough, things would feel right again. I worked a steady job, paid my own bills, showed up when no one else did. If something needed fixing, I handled it. If someone needed help, I said yes. With them, I never kept score. They were my family. That was enough for me. I trusted them in ways I never said out loud. Trusted that they saw me, that they respected me. Even when small things felt off, like how my opinions started getting brushed aside, how decisions happened without me, even when they affected me. How I became the one they called when something needed to be done, but not when something needed to be shared. I noticed it, I just didn't name it. I told myself they were stressed, busy, that it wasn't personal. But it kept building, quietly. Conversations would stop when I entered the room. Plans would change at the last minute, and I'd only hear about it after. Jokes started to land a little too close to the truth. Emily will handle it. Emily doesn't mind. Emily's used to it. They said it like it was harmless, like it was just who I was. And I let it slide, every time. I thought loyalty meant patience. I thought love meant understanding without asking for anything back. That night, I already felt out of place before anyone said a word. The table was full, people talking over each other, laughter that didn't quite reach me. I moved around the room, making sure everything was in place. Plates, drinks, small details no one noticed unless they were missing. I told myself I didn't mind. But then I heard it. The maid will handle it. Said so easily, like it was obvious. And no one corrected it. Not one person. I stood there waiting for someone to laugh it off. To fix it, to look at me and say something. Nothing. Just a few glances. Then they looked away. That was the moment something shifted. Because it wasn't confusing, it wasn't a joke that went wrong. It was acceptance. They had already decided what I was to them. All those small moments I ignored came rushing back at once. Every time I was left out, every time I was assumed, every time I was reduced to what I could do for them. It wasn't new. I was just the last one to see it. My chest felt tight, but my mind went strangely clear. I looked around the table, at faces I had trusted without question, people I had defended, supported, chosen again and again, and in that moment I saw it differently. Not one of them looked surprised. Not one of them thought it was wrong. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a slip. This was how they had been seeing me for a long time. No one spoke after that, not to fix it, not to soften it. They just kept eating, like nothing had shifted. I stepped back from the table. My hands felt cold, my ears were ringing. I didn't trust my voice yet, so I watched. That's when I saw the first crack clearly. Plates were being passed around, conversations moved on. And someone said without looking at me, "She usually takes care of all this anyway." Usually, like it had always been this way. I felt something drop inside me, because I realized they had already been telling people that. Before tonight, I wasn't introduced that way by accident. It was a story they had been building. I walked into the kitchen slowly, just to breathe. But even there it followed me. Two voices low, careless. She doesn't really have anything going on. She lives off them anyway. I stopped. That one hit harder than the word maid. Because it wasn't just about how they treated me. It was about how they described me when I wasn't there. I paid my own rent, my own bills every month. Quietly, without asking anyone for help. But somehow in their version I had become dependent. Small, replaceable. I felt heat rise in my chest, not anger yet, something heavier. Then another piece clicked into place. A few weeks ago, I applied for a better position at work. Something stable, a step forward. I didn't get it. No clear reason, just a polite rejection. At the time, I told myself it happens, that I wasn't ready yet. But standing there, hearing them talk, something didn't sit right anymore. I walked back toward the table slower this time, listening. And then I heard it. She's comfortable where she is. She's not really reliable like that. Said casually, like facts. About me. To people who didn't know me. That was the second shift. Because now it wasn't just inside the house. They had taken that version of me outside. I felt my stomach tighten. Then came the third realization, smaller but sharper. I thought about the money I had been contributing. Groceries, repairs, small emergencies. Every time they said, "We'll settle it later." We never did. And I never pushed. But now I understand why. In their story, I wasn't contributing. I was just around. Useful when needed, invisible when not. My chest felt heavy. Breathing took effort. And then the last piece fell into place. The one that made everything else make sense. I looked at them again, really looked. Not one person seemed uncomfortable. Not one person was worried I might speak up. They weren't afraid of losing me. Because of them, I didn't have anywhere else to go. That was the role they had given me. The quiet one, the helper, the one who stays. And for a long time, I played it perfectly. I felt a wave of something rise in me, not loud, not explosive, just clear. They didn't just misunderstand me. They had slowly rewritten me, and worse, I had let it happen. I didn't react. Not then. I stood there a few seconds longer, then picked up a glass and wiped it clean. Slow, steady, like nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. I stopped listening to what they said. I started watching what they did. Who spoke for me? Who ignored me? Who filled in my story without asking? Patterns showed up fast once I stopped defending them in my head. Who introduced me first? Who laughed when I was reduced to a role? Who corrected nothing? I noticed how easily they moved around me. Like I was part of the furniture. That hurt, but it also helped. Because when people don't see you clearly, they don't watch you closely either. That gave me space. I went back to the table and sat down. No one commented. No one asked why I had been gone so long. I let the silence sit where it belonged. For the rest of the night, I said very little. Not out of fear, out of control. I needed to understand how far this went before I touched anything. On the way home, I didn't cry. That surprised me. I thought I would feel rage, or at least something loud. But what I felt was quieter, clarity, and with it came a question I couldn't ignore. If I speak now, what happens? They deny it. They soften it. They turn it into a misunderstanding. And somehow I end up explaining myself again. I knew that cycle. I had lived it too many times. So I didn't choose anger. I chose patience. The next morning I started small. I went through my own records first. Every payment I had made, every transfer, every shared expense. Dates, amounts, messages. I didn't rush. I checked everything twice. Not to prove something to them. To prove something to myself. That I wasn't imagining it. Then I pulled back quietly. I stopped offering help before being asked. Stopped fixing things automatically. Stopped filling in the gaps they left. No announcements, no explanations. Just absence where I used to be. They noticed, but not in the way I expected. At first they adjusted. Someone else picked up what I didn't. Then small frustrations started showing. Things weren't done the same way. Details got missed. Plans felt less smooth. I watched it all without stepping in. That was harder than anything. Because part of me still wanted to help. Still wanted to keep things running. That part of me didn't disappear overnight. I had to sit with it. The guilt came in waves. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe they didn't mean it like that. Maybe I should just talk to them. But every time I thought that, I went back to what I heard. She lives off them. She's not reliable. Those weren't accidents. Those were decisions, and I couldn't fix a decision they made about me without me. So I kept going, slow, careful. I started asking questions in neutral moments. Simple ones, calm tone. How do you usually describe what I do? What do people think my role is? I watched their faces more than I listened to their answers. Hesitation, deflection, small corrections, not honesty. That told me everything I needed. By the end of the week, the plan wasn't a plan anymore. It was a direction. I wasn't going to fight them. I wasn't going to argue. I was going to let the truth stand where they couldn't move it. Clearly, publicly, calmly, not to hurt them. To remove myself from the version of me they created. And once I saw that clearly, I knew one thing. I wouldn't need to raise my voice at all. I didn't pick a dramatic moment. No announcement, no scene. I waited for another gathering, smaller this time, familiar faces, the same kind of setting where things could be said casually and accepted without question. I arrived early, not to help, just to be there. When someone mentioned how everything always runs smoothly, I didn't step in to fix it. I let the conversation drift. Then I added one sentence. I used to handle most of the planning. I've stepped back recently. Neutral? It didn't sound like a correction. It sounded like information. A few heads turned. Someone asked a simple follow-up. Oh, really? Yeah, I managed the budgets too. It helped keep things consistent. No one argued, but I saw the first shift. Small confusion, quiet recalculation. Later, when expenses came up, I did the same thing. I actually tracked all of that before. I can send the breakdown if anyone needs it. I didn't offer it emotionally. I offered it like a normal, reasonable option. That changed the tone, because now there was something solid behind my words. By the next day, I sent a simple document to a few people who had been involved in those conversations. Dates, contributions, receipts, clear and organized. No commentary, just facts. No one responded right away. But silence felt different this time. Heavier. Within a few days, I started hearing small things. Questions being asked that hadn't been asked before. Clarifications. Quiet corrections in conversations I wasn't even part of. She actually covered that. I didn't realize she handled all of it. The version of me they had created started to loosen. Not because I argued. Because it didn't hold up under simple detail. Then came the next layer. Someone reached out to me privately, asked about my work, my schedule, my responsibilities, not in a polite way, in a curious way. So I answered clearly. What I did, what I managed, what I had applied for recently. I didn't mention the rejection. They did. I heard you weren't ready for that role. I paused, then answered the same way I had answered everything else. I met all the requirements. I wasn't sure why it didn't go through. Again, no accusation, just a fact placed where it could be seen. A few days later, I got another message. Short, careful. Someone had spoken on my behalf during that process. Shared concerns about my reliability. Not my work, my availability. I didn't need to ask who. The pattern was already clear, but I didn't react. I sent one reply. Thank you for telling me. Then I forwarded my actual work records, attendance, performance reviews, project timelines, clean, verifiable, no emotion attached. That's when things started to move faster. Because now it wasn't just family conversations. It was professional credibility, and facts don't stay contained once they're questioned. Within a week, the tone around me had changed. People spoke more carefully, asked before assuming, and the ones who had spoken for me before stopped. Not out of respect, out of uncertainty. They couldn't rely on the version they had been using anymore. It didn't match what others were starting to see. At the next gathering, no one used that word again. Not even as a joke. But something else was gone too. The confidence, they didn't speak about me the same way. didn't introduce me the same way. They hesitated, and in that hesitation, everything they had built quietly started to collapse. The shift didn't explode, it settled. Slow, quiet, permanent. People stopped repeating things about me. They started asking me directly. That alone changed everything. One evening, someone asked in front of them, "So you handled all the finances before?" I answered the same way I had answered everything else. Yes, for a long time. No extra words. Then another question came. Then why did people think you weren't contributing? Silence followed, not the kind that ignores, the kind that waits. I didn't fill it. I just looked down at my glass, then back up, calm. "I'm not sure," I said. That was the first time they didn't have control over the story. Because now, the gap between what was said about me and what was real was visible to everyone else. And I didn't have to point at it. It stood on its own. After that, things moved without me. People compared notes. Small details didn't match anymore. What I had done, what I had paid, what I had managed, it all surfaced in pieces, not from me pushing it, from others noticing it. And once people start noticing inconsistencies, they don't stop. The conversations I wasn't part of became the ones that mattered most. Questions turned into conclusions. Why was she described that way? Why was her role minimized? Why was false information shared about her outside the house? There were no good answers. Because the truth was simple. They had shaped a version of me that made their lives easier. And that version couldn't survive basic facts. The professional damage didn't stay quiet either. I was called back in, not with apologies, with careful distance. My records were reviewed again. My application reconsidered. This time, the conversation felt different. Clear, direct. There was no mention of concerns anymore. Only what could be proven. I didn't ask for explanations. I didn't bring up what had been said. I let the correction happen on its own terms, because that's what made it stick. At home, the change was harder to watch. They spoke less when I was around. Measured their words. Not out of respect. Out of awareness. They knew now that what they said could be checked. That I wasn't silent anymore. But I wasn't loud either. That unsettled them more than anything. There were no confrontations. No apologies that meant anything. Just distance growing where certainty used to be. The roles shifted without agreement. I stopped showing up the same way. Not out of anger, out of understanding. I saw them clearly now. And once you see something clearly, you can't return to the version that needed less from it. The final moment came quietly. Another gathering, another introduction. They paused before speaking about me. Just for a second. But it was enough. Because that pause held everything. The old story, the exposed truth, the space where they no longer knew what to say. I didn't help them fill it. I didn't correct them either. I just stood there steady, unaffected, because I didn't need their words anymore. What I had rebuilt didn't depend on them, and what they had lost couldn't be repaired by silence. I didn't take anything from them. I just stopped carrying what they had placed on me. And without it, everything they built around that lie collapsed on its own. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't fight. I told the truth. And I let it stay.